Welcome back to the show. It is a pleasure to have you on board with us. Now, today being a Wednesday, of course, we usually get to bring you women who are doing different things in different fields and who are also making an impact for their societies and communities. Today is no different, as our woman at the forefront is one Nancy Njeri. Now, Nancy Njeri is a public health advocate. She is an educator and a cultural ambassador and is currently the reigning Miss Kenya USA. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. And you?
I'm doing well, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show this morning, so that we can, we just get to have an overview of who Nancy Njeri exactly is. Go ahead and just give us a brief intro of yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, to two Kenyan parents. So I grew up in the States. I went to school there. And with time, I guess I would describe myself as a child as someone who was into the arts. So I loved models, I like watching shows, but also just different ways to express myself, whether it was dancing or playing sports. So I was a multifaceted individual. And with time, growing up, I wanted to be a doctor or a marine biologist, but then it wasn't until I got into college I discovered public health, and I was hooked then. Yeah.
I would love to get to understand your journey in pageantry, before we get into the public health bit of it. Now, what prompted you to get into, the modeling part of life?
Yeah, so I think growing up, the taller I got, once I had my growth spurt, a lot of people were like, you should model, you should consider modeling. And it was something in the back of my head, and I used to have a few friends who were also pursuing different creative things like, oh, could you come and do a shoot for us? So it was like trade for trade. But with time, I realized, I think it was back in, I want to say 2016, when I saw the Miss South Africa win. I was like, oh, there's another component of modeling that I could expose myself to and consider pursuing. And especially within the pageant realm, there's an age limit. So I think certain systems, once you reach 25, you can't do. Yeah. So I was like, let me look into it, but I knew that's something I'll save till when I'm older, not anytime soon. And so it wasn't until my senior year of college that I learned about the Miss Kenya USA from a cousin of mine. And I applied. I signed up, I practiced a lot, and then I did it. And that was my first pageant.
So this was actually your first pageant? You went into it green, as a first, and you actually got it?
Yes.
How was that like for you? First of all, take me through the preparation stage of it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of prep that goes into pageants before. When you see the result, you assume, okay, you just walk, grace the stage and come off. There's a lot. You have to know how to compose yourself, how to, stand upright, how to articulate yourself well. What is your platform? What is your why? And then how to distinguish yourself in each category. So going into it beforehand, I genuinely didn't know how much prep it would take. And so once I started prepping, I started realizing okay, you don't just stand on the stage, you have to dance, or you have to move with your outfit or stand out in each thing. And so the prep, I remember every week, I would go to my runway coach, and we would just practice for an hour straight of me walking up and down, up and down. And then I had a pageant coach, and then we were practicing in the dress, and then we were, doing questions that they may ask me. And then a dear friend of mine, her little sister, would come, and she was like, it's game mode. There's nobody's laughing, nobody's doing anything. We all need to sit there and practice. But there's a lot of prep that goes into it.
Yeah, and most times, looking from the outside, looking in, we just get to see this runway models just getting to strut the runway, and it's all glitz and glam. But the work that goes in before we get to that point where, yes, now you're on the runway and showcasing, different designs. A lot goes into it before we get to that point. So maybe if we can just talk a bit about demystifying how the modeling industry, to be specific, sometimes may be perceived, as just, okay.
I think For most models, they try to exude this, not, what's the word, like youthful essence, right? But that comes through hard work as well. So a lot of them, you eat well, so you're mindful of what you eat. You try to make sure you sleep well, because that will show, you know, in your under eyes, like the body will tell. So you have to be very mindful of how you're taking care of yourself. You know, not overindulging into things, whether it's sugar, and just making sure you're active and you're moving. But it's just like, it's not just you show up. It's like, if I'm deciding to, let's say, be the face of this brand, they're expecting me to come in as a certain way. So you have to do your due diligence of taking care of yourself to make sure you know your job is your looks.
Yeah. And also, you know, speaking about it not being about the glitz and the glam, there's always, when it comes to pageants, you need to have a passion project.
Right.
I believe, you know, every model that is coming on board needs to have a passion project. So talk to me about your passion project.
So mine is actually with maternal and neonatal health. The reason as to why I was doing it is because that final year of college, I decided to do my last project on Kenya. And when I was looking into it, I realized that maternal mortality was the 6th leading cause of death. And I remember when I spoke with my mom, I found out that's the same reason my shosho lost her child, because of the way things were handled. So she had a preterm baby. And I was like, you mean to tell me 50 years down the line, we're still having some sort of problems when it comes to maternal and infant outcomes? And so looking into that, it was around the time I also found the pageant, and I was like, oh, this is perfect, because beyond just being beautiful, how can I spread this message to those who it matters the most? And then also, being a Black woman in the States, you're 3 times more likely to pass away when delivering, yet it has nothing to do with, let's say, a said condition, but rather the way care is being, you know how they're...
Negligence.
Exactly, negligence. And so that was part of my why. And with time, even coming here, I've been here for 2 months, and I was in Kisumu. The more we look at these cases, we see a lot of children are passing away from preventable measures. And so there's so many, or preventable causes. There's so many things that can be done on the mother's end or on the hospital's end. But sometimes there's this lack of knowledge or lack of practice. And so it's creating deaths that are not needed or unnecessary. So for me, it's just like, I can either come and just look pretty, or I can come and share the word. And maybe this is what will invite people to listen to me. But beyond that, it's like, how can I change a mother's life and their child's?
And you're so passionate about it, you know, you're so passionate about it. So probably, you know, as you've said, you've been in the country for 2 months specifically for that, you know, working around the maternal health and all of that. So what would you say you've pointed out as gaps when it comes to women's health?
So the biggest when it comes to it is misconceptions. When it comes to antenatal cares, we see mothers will go in the beginning trimester, like their first trimester, so that they can get ultrasound pictures of the child. And they're like, oh, I've seen the child and that's enough. But beyond that, no, you have to keep going, because if not, conditions within the body can worsen, right? So if you have high blood pressure or you're anemic, this is not good for your child. So you can develop preeclampsia, which later will develop to eclampsia, which is something, if caught earlier, could be, you know, changed. Same with mothers who are on HIV. If they're taking their antiretroviral therapy, the child will come out and the likelihood of them having HIV decreases. But when they're not, you know, following up, it leads to things that could have been changed or caught, but they're not caught. And then in addition to that, mothers should be taking like iron supplements or folic acid so that the child can fully develop. Because if the child comes out and their lungs are not developed, they struggle to breathe, they struggle later down in, you know, in life. And you have to think like, what type of child am I bringing into the world? And is it one that has a fighting chance or fair chance at life? And it's not the mother's fault exclusively, but you know, sometimes there are misconceptions or rumors that are like, oh, you go there, they take your blood and they keep it or something like this. But no, they're testing to make sure you're well. And I think sometimes people have to understand healthcare workers are there to help. And that's their heart to serve, isn't it? And so just having these more conversations like this, and even maybe having mothers come and say, you know, their problems they have with the health system. But then another thing is the strain. A lot of national level hospitals, a lot of people go to them first, but then there's not enough, doctors or physicians to treat everyone. So then that leads to doctors having to choose, okay, which patient is going to have a higher likelihood of surviving, which is part of the reason why the initiative I'm doing with COIN, the Coalition of International Neonatal Nurses, we're raising 40 bed cots and 10 CPAP machines because many of the times doctors have to put babies all in one bed cot, like 3 babies, right? So if one has an infection, it gives it to all the other children. And these are things that are preventable, but there's not enough supplies or enough people to distribute it. So we're trying to give each baby a fighting chance at living that life.
How has that been like for you?
Yeah. Which element of it?
Just the entire bit of it, getting to come back to your home country. Yes, you were not born here, but this is your home country. Just getting to come back here and work on such a project that is really, it's uplifting, it's life-saving, a project that you're also very passionate about. How has that been like for you?
Yeah, it's been a beautiful experience and very humbling because being able to recognize that people don't pick the situations that they're in. We're all born, and we're born to parents, we don't pick that. We're born in places, we don't pick that. And for me, I recognize the position of privilege I'm in by coming back. But I'm like, given that what I have, I can either, stay in the States, stay to myself and continue to grow myself and my life exclusively, or I can use what I've been learning and the gift that I've been blessed with to help and impact other people. And it's been so beautiful to be with other healthcare providers and seeing how receptive they are, but also coming in and not saying, oh, everything you're doing is wrong, but how can I work alongside you and support the effort you're doing? So this is why with the CPAP machines, it's COIN that told me, this is what we're struggling with, this is what we need, how can we help? How can I be of help to them? So I've been able to raise 200,000 Kenyan shillings, and we're trying to get to 1.5 million. But I'm just like, I recognize the work that's already being done, and I just want to amplify it.
Yeah, and how do you get to decide where exactly to go? Like you mentioned, you're working in with a facility in Kisumu. So how do you get to pick? Okay, we'll be going to Kisumu, or are we going to be in Nairobi and maybe Machakos? How do you get to decide on that?
So with the Kisumu project, it was actually an extension of my practicum at Emory University. So I had a professor who I met, and he's working with an organization in Cham. So when I was speaking with him, he's like, you're welcome to come with me, to Kisumu and, join the project that I'm doing there. So that's kind of how that happened. But when it comes to now the CPAP machines, COIN is reaching out to the Ministry of Health to know which facility is in need of it first. So yeah.
Yeah. What is your work grounded on,
Just making the world better. I think when we watch the news, we can see, you can feel helpless or very distraught. But I think one mindset I like to have is, what is the little I can do with what I have now? And so, like I was saying, I have this ability and gift to do something, and instead of me sitting and doing nothing, what can I do? So this is kind of like, I can't just sit there. I have to do something.
Yeah, and this is something that you do that excites you, like you do it and it gives you fulfillment.
Yes.
Would you say that this is your purpose in life?
Maybe I got a little bit of chills when you said that, and probably, but I'm a very prayerful person, and I ask God and I discern, okay, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? And with this whole journey, I never saw myself being a pageant queen, and it was something I saw as a dream, but the way things just developed and the way even all the prep before and how people just came and helped me and came alongside me, supporting me, even till now, I know it's not my doing but God's, and I'm like, Lord, if I just stay in your will, things will continue to align. So to an extent, I would say yes.
It is your purpose. It's amazing that you've gotten to, establish and realize your purpose, because they say there's two, I don't know if this is the correct way of putting it. A person gets born 2 times, When you get born into the world, of course, that's obvious. But then the other time that you are born is when you get to discover why you were born. Exactly. And that is when you realize your
purpose.
Look it.
Oh, that was too good. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So now, maybe what's your long-term goal in matters, public health?
Yeah.
What's your long-term goal before we get to talk about the projects that you're doing also in the education sector, because you do that as well. So winding up on the maternal health and projects around that, what are you looking at in the long run?
Hopefully, having maybe 100,000 lives saved within the, let's say next 5 years, right? Because there's more time, of course. But I just really want to see a long-lasting legacy, and even just having one life saved. I don't want to undermine it by having, this big target number. But one life in itself, we don't know if that's the next doctor or the next president or the next scientist who discovers like a cure to cancer. But each child and each individual matters. So just having that remain there, and then maybe coming back and just helping improve the hospital systems here in Kenya.
All right, all the best on that. All the best on that.
Thank you.
Now, you've also founded a curriculum that affirms children's identities. Tell me more about that. Let us in on that.
Yeah, so it's called Cultivate, and the whole idea came from the way we tend to a garden, right? And you have a seed, and with that seed, if you tend to it, you water it, you have sunlight, it will blossom. But after it blossoms, with time, it'll bear fruit. And that fruit is enough to sustain you, to keep you alive for a lifetime. And so the whole concept is having children discover who they are so they know how to contribute into the world, but it being so purposeful so that they know why they were made. And so part of the reason I felt the need to do it, especially here in Kenya, is given the way the academic system focuses primarily on the child's academic outcome, as opposed to who they are, what are their interests, right? If they're doing well in sports or the creatives, like having the child be holistic. So I wanted the kids, we've begun by doing a personality test, right? So if you know who you are, if you know you're extroverted or introverted, if you know you like to socialize or how you like to show up in certain places, it helps you know, okay, later down in life, this is a career that would be good for me, or this work environment is also good for me. But I was like, if you know yourself the best, then it's going to be easier navigating through life. So people are not telling you who you are, but you're showing it up in places saying, this is who I am, this is what I have, take it or leave it, like this. And so it was just strengthening. It was both, I believe the class was like 128 grade 9 students, but I also wanted them to see that their dreams can come to fruition. It's just them to take care of it. And yes, people may come and say, this plan of yours is not growing, but you and your side in self know what you're putting in to make that come to purpose, right? And so that's kind of what we did with the students. And it was a really, really beautiful experience. And it was interesting to see, even after the program, there was a statistic that came out saying, I believe 400,000 students in grade 9 don't know what they want to be here in Kenya. But it's also like we don't have spaces like this where the students can, dream and desire and hear what it would take, but also think outside of this box that they've been placed in. Yeah.
So just how exactly does this curriculum work? Is it a one-off thing whereby you just gather school-going children, pupils in one area, get them through the program, or is it something that you move around in schools, give the curriculum to the teachers? Just help me understand how that works.
So I did it for the month of June, and I was fortunate enough to have the school called Green Garden Schools in Kikuyu. They allowed me to speak to their grade 9 students and then their Form 4 students. And so far I've only been able to do it in one school, but of course if I am able to, reach out to other schools or hear back from them, then maybe I can move around. But we did it for a few weeks. And so I had some of my friends back in the States who are like engineers, like zoom in and say what their journey was like. And I remember one friend, she was explaining to the students how I believe she got like a 1 or 5 in her science test, and everyone was like, what? And now she's studying, biochemical engineering. So it's knowing that, yes, you may have these things in the world tell you, or people tell you you're incapable of it, but that doesn't mean anything if you have the drive. But that was one proponent of it. But they're just like different little workshops to do with the students.
Yeah, and I like how you've put it, that, you had people who are coming in, probably not in person, but just people who would be there as representations to show that it's actually possible. It can be done. And it does not matter, where you are at the moment in terms of even your education, whether you're failing in school or not. It's all about your mindset,
Right.
what you have in your mind, what you desire, and mainly just have your focus on. So just probably, you know, what's the importance of having that,
Yeah.
having that representation where there's someone you can look at, not necessarily mirroring, but there's someone else that you can look at as a mentor.
Yeah, I think it only fuels your dream more to know it's possible. Like, yes, certain students may be creating their own path that doesn't exist yet, but to hear, you know, each successful person has a different outcome, but the work they put in is the same. Meaning, you wake up every day, this is how you stay diligent. So seeing that, okay, these are the skills that I need to acquire, even though I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a singer, or I want to be, you know, let's say a football player, right? These are all very different things, but that diligence, right? There's commonalities between all of these people that if you see and you begin to understand so young, then you're unstoppable.
Yeah, that's for sure. Teach them young, as
Yes,
they always say.
yes.
You know, and you have this vision of to nurture, you know, a generation of confident and informed youth. That is what you're doing with this particular curriculum that you've just gotten to talk about. What's the background for that? Like, what initiated that part of you?
Yeah, I think it was discovering myself. In college, I went in and I didn't know much about public health, and it was during the pandemic. But I was like, if I had someone, you know, just expose me to different careers, especially from a young age, but also how much more decisions I would have made with confidence if I knew who I was. A lot of things would have been differently. Like, I'm grateful for the path that I've been on because it's led me here. But just imagine how many other empowered people, or let alone children, would go out into society if they knew exactly who they were and what they wanted, right? So that was part of the inspiration for the curriculum. And centering it in Christ.
Yeah. So you work with kids around what ages, probably?
Yeah, so anywhere from middle school to high school, but even primary school, the older kids can be taught as well. Okay. As we almost come to a close of this conversation, you are a cultural ambassador going by your bio. Tell me more about that. And I've also read somewhere that you love encouraging Kenyans living in the diaspora to engage more with their heritage. And by this, you mean not just engaging with our food, our cuisines, or our festivals, but engaging more with our culture. Talk more about that. Yeah, so I think one of the beautiful things about winning the pageant is that I've gotten to travel to several different states within the States, I guess, and just meet different Kenyans living in the diaspora. Even though we're all very different and have different upbringings, it's very similar, but we're all united by being Kenyan. But I think there's a gap between, let's say, my parents' generation and those my generation and younger, or a little bit older too, in terms of, yes, we're Kenyan by virtue, but it's like beyond just eating the food or speaking the language. Do we actually know our people? Do we know the struggles they went through? Do we know our history? So I've been beckoning a lot of children to know these things for themselves. And I think a lot changed when I met Goge Watheongo, and it just ignited something in me, because he kept emphasizing that if we don't speak our mother tongue, it'll be gone. And already coming back to Kenya, it's been interesting, or rather scary, to see that the children now can't speak their mother tongue. And at least I understand a little bit of Kikuyu, but I'm like, okay, coming back to Kenya, and a lot of people don't speak, you know, that language. Just like that in one generation. When we have kids, then how are we going to speak to them if we can't even speak it ourselves? So like he's saying, the language will die. So it's just knowing these things of like connecting back to our roots and remembering where we came from and paying homage to those that came before us.
You're doing an amazing job. And for sure, you deserve to be our woman at the forefront today, because you're doing a lot of things that are impacting the next person in a very big way that maybe you may not actually get to see it, but it sure will make an impact. So probably just, that's your camera. You can give us your final remarks.
So thank you for everyone who's listened. And I just want to remind you that you are capable of doing anything, and you can do it through Christ who strengthens you. But God created you for a purpose, so take time to know who you are so that you can make the most out of this life, because we only have one to live.
Well put. Thank you so much for gracing our show today, and all the best in everything that you get to have your hands in.
Thank you for having me.
All right, this is where we end this particular conversation, and this is also where we end Good Morning Kenya for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, we do this each and every morning, so I'll see you tomorrow, same time and place. God willing, do enjoy the rest of your viewing. Goodbye.